Hi, I'm Jessica. What I'm about to share still makes my blood boil, even months later. It should have been the happiest day of my life, welcoming my beautiful son into the world. Instead, my sister-in-law, Sarah, turned it into a nightmare so surreal it ended with her in handcuffs. Let me start at the beginning. My husband, Mike, and I have been trying for a baby for 2 long years when we finally got the news we'd been praying for. I was pregnant. Overcome with joy, we announced it at a family dinner. The moment felt magical until my brother James and his wife, Sarah, shared that they too were expecting. She was 2 months behind me. At first, it seemed perfect. 2 cousins growing up together, sharing milestones. How wonderful, my mother-in-law Linda gushed. Both my babies having babies. She cried happy tears, embracing us and dreaming up joint baby showers and matching nurseries. But the harmony didn't last. It started with small, cutting comments during the prenatal yoga classes Sarah and I attended together. "I just know I'm having a boy," she'd say. "The family needs a male here. Or, it's probably best if you have a girl first, Jessica. To take the pressure off." When my 20-week scan revealed we were having a boy, Sarah's mask slipped. She stopped attending yoga, blocked me on social media, and whispered to family members that I was rubbing my pregnancy in her face. "Just ignore her," Mike said, massaging my shoulders. "She's probably just hormonal." James tried to smooth things over. "Sarah's nervous about her scan next week. You know how she gets when she's stressed." But her behavior only escalated. At my baby shower, she hijacked the moment by dramatically announcing her pregnancy was high risk, it wasn't, and dissolving into tears. Everyone rushed to comfort her. Later, she tried convincing Linda to return the gifts she'd bought for my son, arguing, "We should wait to see what I'm having first." The breaking point came on the day I went into labor. Mike and I had just checked into the maternity ward when Sarah showed up, claiming she was there for a routine checkup. Before we could question her, she followed us into the labor room as I changed into a gown. Her voice was cold, venomous. "You don't deserve this," she hissed. "You got pregnant first just to steal my moment, and with a boy, no less." Before Mike could react, Sarah shoved me hard. I stumbled backward, crashing into a full-length mirror. The glass shattered, shards raining down as a sharp pain seared through my back. The last thing I saw before the nurses rushed in was Sarah's face, not regretful, but smug, satisfied. That shove didn't just break a mirror, it shattered any chance of us ever being family again. But Sarah was about to learn that karma hits back harder than any shove she could deliver. The next few hours were chaos. Glass fragments had cut into my back and arms. But the real danger was to my baby. The doctors were on high alert, monitoring for signs of placental abruption. Their tense faces hovered over me as they checked the fetal heartbeat monitor again and again. She just tripped. Sarah's voice screeched from the hallway where security was restraining her. I tried to catch her. "Jessica's always been clumsy. Tell them, James." Mike's voice thundered over hers. "There are witnesses. The whole thing is on camera. You could have killed our son." The maternity ward was a whirlwind of activity. Nurses rushing between rooms, security guards stationed at my door, Linda's anguished cries echoing down the hall. "How could you, Sarah? How could you?" Detective Chin, a calm and kind police officer, arrived to take my statement between contractions. "Take your time, Mrs. Martinez," he said gently. "We have security footage and multiple witnesses who saw Mrs. Williams follow you into the room." "I want to press charges," I managed to say through gritted teeth as another contraction hit. Mike squeezed my hand, his face a mix of worry and fury. Moments later, James appeared in the doorway, pale and shaken. "Jessica, I'm so sorry," he murmured. But sorry wasn't enough. Sarah's actions had changed everything. I had no idea Sarah was capable of such cruelty. She's telling everyone it was an accident, but I've seen the footage. I don't even recognize the person she's become. The hours following the incident were a blur. The stress had complicated my labor, and the doctors were discussing the possibility of an emergency C-section. Through it all, Sarah's dramatic sobs echoed from somewhere in the hospital. She was telling anyone who would listen that she was the real victim, insisting the stress might harm her baby. After what felt like an eternity, my son finally arrived, perfect and healthy, despite everything. But even this pure, joyous moment was overshadowed. Instead of peaceful bonding, Our first hours as a family were interrupted by hospital administrators documenting my injuries, police officers taking statements, and family members coming in and out, teary-eyed and distraught. The district attorney will definitely want to pursue this, Detective Chen informed us as I nursed my newborn. Assault on a pregnant woman is a serious offense. Given the security footage and witness statements, Mrs. Williams is looking at significant charges. By then, Sarah had been removed from the hospital, but her flying monkeys were already at work. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from distant relatives. Family should forgive family. Think of Sarah's baby. You're being dramatic. Mike finally snatched the phone from my hands, his jaw tight with anger. The only people you need to focus on are yourself and our son, he said firmly. Let the police handle Sarah. As I cradled my beautiful baby boy, watching him sleep peacefully despite the chaos around us, I made a vow. Sarah hadn't just attacked me, she'd risked my child's life. No amount of family pressure or crocodile tears would make me back down. She was about to learn that some bridges, once burned, light the way to justice. A week after bringing our son home, Mike and I sat in a hospital administrator's office, watching the security footage. The video left no room for Sarah's claims of an accident. Multiple camera angles showed her following us, pacing outside our room, and then deliberately shoving me into the mirror. When nurses rushed in, she even tried to block the door. The hospital is filing separate charges, the administrator informed us. This kind of violence in our maternity ward is unacceptable. We've also had 3 nurses come forward about Mrs. Williams' aggressive behavior during her prenatal visits. As the truth unraveled, more stories emerged. Cousin Linda revealed that Sarah had destroyed her wedding dress years ago after discovering they'd chosen the same designer. Mike's sister, Emma, admitted Sarah had once pushed her at a family pool party, claiming Emma had slipped. Even Linda, my mother-in-law, finally confessed to witnessing Sarah deliberately trip a coworker at last year's Christmas party out of jealousy. We all kept quiet to keep the peace. Linda sobbed, guilt-stricken. I enabled her by staying silent. I'm so sorry, Jessica. The pressure to drop charges was relentless. Daily calls from family members urged us to forgive. Think of the baby shower we planned, they said. James is heartbroken. She's pregnant. You can't send her to jail. Then came the so-called family dinner, organized by Linda to heal. The tension was palpable, with everyone walking on eggshells, until Sarah arrived, her tone dripping with venom. I've apologized, she sneered. Jessica's just jealous because my baby shower will be bigger. She's using this accident to turn everyone against me, and now my baby might have complications from all this stress. The room fell silent. Finally, James spoke. Sarah, stop. His voice was low but steady. I've seen the footage. You followed her. You pushed her. You smiled about it. You're taking her side? After everything I've done for this family? Sarah shrieked, her mask slipping entirely. In a sudden fit of rage, she grabbed Linda's prized crystal vase, a cherished family heirloom, and hurled it at the wall near my head. Gasps filled the room as shards rained down. Then she started grabbing anything within reach, throwing it with wild abandon. I deserve that baby boy, she screamed. She stole everything. My moment, my son, my family. James intercepted her just as she reached for a heavy photo frame, grabbing her wrist. His expression was a mix of heartbreak and clarity. Security cameras don't lie, Sarah, he said quietly. Neither does this meltdown. I want a divorce. Sarah's scream echoed through the house as family members led her away, her protests and sobs fading into the distance. James stayed behind, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I should have seen it sooner, Jessica, he said, his voice heavy with regret. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to believe the person I married could be so cruel. The aftermath was devastating. Broken crystal, shattered photos, fractured relationships. It was a mess, both literally and figuratively. But in that moment, I realized something important. Sometimes it takes a complete breakdown for the truth to break through. 3 months later, as my son reached another milestone, the court date arrived. Sarah showed up playing the perfect victim, dressed modestly, cradling her baby bump, and shedding well-timed tears. But her performance crumbled under the weight of evidence. Security footage, witness statements, hospital records, and photos of my injuries. The defendant showed premeditation by following the victim, the prosecutor stated. She deliberately assaulted a woman in active labor, showing complete disregard for two lives. But the legal consequences were only the beginning. In our tight-knit community, news spread fast. Sarah's carefully curated image of the perfect wife and expectant mother crumbled almost overnight. Her interior design clients quietly dropped her, unwilling to let someone so volatile into their homes. Her sponsors for her mommy blogger persona pulled out, and her once flawless social media empire imploded as the truth surfaced. James wasted no time filing for divorce. Despite Sarah's tearful manipulation attempts, he remained resolute. "I'm not letting my child grow up thinking this behavior is normal," he told me one afternoon, watching my son cooing on his baby mat. "I'll co-parent with her, but that's it." Linda transformed our old playroom into a nursery, helping care for my son while I recovered. One evening, as she rocked him to sleep, she whispered, "I should have protected you better, but I promise both my grandbabies will grow up in a healthier environment now." Meanwhile, my brother moved back in with Mom temporarily, starting therapy to process everything. It was during one of these sessions that Sarah's family finally admitted she'd had similar incidents growing up. Aggressive outbursts and manipulative tactics they dismissed as a strong personality. They took over managing her prenatal care and kept her away from our side of the family entirely. The experience changed us all. Mike and I reinforced our boundaries, choosing carefully who we allowed into our son's life. James dedicated himself to single fatherhood, determined to break the cycle of toxicity. Linda, once the family peacemaker, found her voice and stopped tolerating bad behavior in the name of harmony. 6 months after the incident, we celebrated my son's first Christmas. Our family circle was smaller now, but it felt stronger than ever. As I looked around the room, I felt a deep sense of peace. My baby boy was thriving, surrounded by people who genuinely loved him. James was healing, preparing to co-parent with clear boundaries. Even Linda seemed lighter, no longer walking on eggshells to maintain false peace. Sarah's actions, intended to shatter us, had instead revealed the cracks that needed mending. They forced us to rebuild on stronger foundations. As I watched my son giggle in his uncle's arms, I knew we'd made the right choices. Some might call it karma, but to me it was justice, letting natural consequences unfold while focusing on healing and growth. Sometimes a happy ending isn't about revenge. It's about rebuilding, setting boundaries, and choosing peace over toxic relationships. My son will grow up knowing that love doesn't hurt. Family isn't about power plays, and it's okay, even necessary, to walk away from people who try to dim your light. Your turn. What would you do if you discovered your sister-in-law had been sabotaging other family members for years, not just you? Sarah's behavior wasn't new. She had hurt multiple people, from destroying Linda's wedding dress to pushing Emma at the pool. Yet everyone stayed quiet to keep the peace. Do you think the family was partly responsible for enabling her by staying silent? Share your thoughts in the comments below.